Have you ever noticed how certain sounds affect you differently, even when you don't fully understand why? Some sounds make you tense immediately. Others make you feel calm without effort. A certain song changes your mood. A certain voice relaxes you. Certain environments drain your energy almost instantly. And most people accept this as normal without ever asking a deeper question. If sound can affect emotions so easily, what else could it be affecting? Your focus? Your stress levels? Your decision-making? Your motivation? Your relationship with money? At first, that idea may sound strange. But when you think about it carefully, your entire nervous system constantly reacts to frequencies, not just music. Everything around you carries energetic patterns. Light, noise, conversations, emotions, environments. Your brain is always interpreting signals, and those signals shape your internal state far more than most people realize. Now here's where things become interesting. Over the last several years, millions of people have become fascinated by a specific frequency often associated with relaxation, emotional balance, and inner alignment. 432 Hertz. You've probably seen videos claiming it can transform your life. Raise your vibration, attract abundance, improve your energy, even change your financial reality. And for many people, those claims immediately sound unrealistic, because linking a sound frequency to money feels too simple, too mystical, too disconnected from reality. But the deeper conversation isn't really about magic. It's about state. Because whether people realize it or not, your internal state influences almost every financial decision you make. The way you respond to stress, the way you handle uncertainty, the way you react to pressure, the way you interpret opportunities. And most people spend their lives operating in a constant state of internal tension without fully realizing it. They wake up stressed, consume stressful information, rush through the day, stay mentally overstimulated, sleep poorly, think anxiously about the future. Then they wonder why clarity, consistency, and momentum feel impossible to maintain. The human nervous system was never designed to live in permanent survival mode, but modern life quietly keeps people there, and survival mode changes behavior dramatically. When the nervous system is overwhelmed, people become reactive instead of intentional. They make short-term decisions, lose emotional control more easily, struggle to focus, struggle to think creatively, struggle to remain consistent. And consistency is one of the foundations of financial growth. That's the part many people overlook. Money is not only influenced by knowledge or effort, it's also influenced by emotional regulation. Because even intelligent people sabotage opportunities when stress dominates their internal state. You've probably seen this happen before. The real question is, what happens when your internal state becomes more balanced, focused, and emotionally regulated over time? That's a much more important conversation. Because most financial problems are not created only by lack of information. Many are created by emotional patterns, stress, fear, impulsiveness, mental exhaustion, constant distraction, negative conditioning. And those patterns directly influence financial behavior. A person who constantly operates in anxiety often struggles to think long-term. A person trapped in emotional overwhelm struggles to remain consistent. A person who feels internally chaotic usually creates chaotic habits externally. That affects everything: spending, saving, investing, opportunity recognition, work performance, self-discipline, which means emotional regulation is not separate from financial life. It's deeply connected to it. Now, think about how rarely modern people experience true mental stillness. Most people are constantly consuming stimulation, notifications, videos, noise, arguments, stressful headlines, financial fears, comparison. The brain never fully rests. And over time, that constant overstimulation fragments attention. People become mentally exhausted without understanding why. Their focus weakens. Their patience weakens. Their emotional resilience weakens. Then they attempt to build a better financial future while internally depleted. That's incredibly difficult, because building anything meaningful requires sustained clarity. And clarity becomes almost impossible when the nervous system remains overloaded constantly. This is one reason many people become interested in frequencies like 432 Hz. Not because they expect magic, but because they're desperate to feel internally stable again. And when certain sounds create moments of calm, people often experience something unusual. Their thoughts slow down. For the first time in a long time, they feel less mentally crowded, less emotionally reactive, less trapped in internal noise. That experience can feel powerful precisely because modern life rarely allows it. Now, scientifically speaking, debates still exist around the specific claims made about 432 Hz. Some researchers argue that many effects come from relaxation itself rather than the exact frequency. Others believe harmonic differences may influence perception more deeply than we currently understand. But regardless of where someone stands scientifically, the larger principle remains important. Your environment affects your state, and your state affects your behavior. That connection is undeniable. For example, imagine two versions of the same person. One version wakes up stressed, distracted, emotionally overwhelmed, and mentally scattered every day. The other version spends time calming the nervous system, reducing internal noise, improving focus, and creating emotional stability. Which version is more likely to make clear financial decisions consistently? Which version is more likely to stay disciplined? More creative? More resilient during setbacks? The answer is obvious. Internal state shapes external performance constantly. That's why high performers across many fields protect their mental environment carefully. They understand something most people ignore. Attention is energy, and whatever constantly controls your attention eventually shapes your life. This becomes especially important financially, because modern financial systems often profit from emotional instability. Fear sells, impulse sells, distraction sells. People under stress consume differently, think differently, react differently. A calm person is harder to manipulate emotionally, and emotional manipulation drives massive amounts of financial behavior. That's why inner regulation matters more than people realize. Not because calmness magically creates wealth, but because emotional stability improves decision quality over time. And repeated decisions shape financial outcomes. This is where many manifestation conversations accidentally point towards something real, even if they explain it poorly. People often say, "Raise your vibration." And while that phrase becomes overly mystical sometimes, there's a practical interpretation underneath it. Your emotional baseline affects the quality of your actions. Someone operating from fear behaves differently than someone operating from grounded clarity. Fear narrows perception. Stress reduces patience. Overwhelm weakens discipline. Meanwhile, emotional balance improves focus, long-term thinking, and resilience. That directly affects financial behavior. So when people use calming practices, meditation, breathing techniques, or frequency-based audio, the real value may not be supernatural. The value may be nervous system regulation. And nervous system regulation changes behavior. That's the important part. Because behavior repeated consistently over years creates financial reality. Most people search for dramatic external solutions while ignoring their internal condition entirely. They look for secret strategies, secret investments, secret shortcuts. But if the nervous system remains chaotic, even good opportunities become difficult to sustain. That's why so many people experience cycles: motivation, action, burnout, collapse, restart, over and over again. The internal system never stabilizes long enough for momentum to compound, and compounding is everything financially. Not intensity, consistency. A calm, focused person making stable decisions for 10 years usually outperforms someone constantly oscillating emotionally. This is also why some wealthy individuals seem emotionally different. They often protect their mental state aggressively, not because they're spiritually superior, but because emotional clarity supports long-term performance. And long-term performance creates results. Now, does this mean listening to 432 Hertz alone will suddenly transform your finances? No, but could improving your internal state gradually improve the quality of your behavior, focus, discipline, emotional regulation, and long-term consistency? Absolutely. And that's where the conversation becomes meaningful, because changing your financial life often begins long before money itself changes. It begins with your patterns, your attention, your emotional habits, your mental environment, your nervous system. Those invisible layers quietly shape your visible outcomes. Most people underestimate how much stress distorts perception. Under chronic stress, people stop seeing possibilities clearly. Everything begins feeling heavy, complicated, hopeless. And hopelessness destroys momentum faster than almost anything else. That's why restoring internal balance matters. Not because balance automatically attracts money, but because it restores the mental clarity required to build a better future consistently. And consistency always matters more than temporary motivation. This is why many people describe experiences with calming frequencies as life-changing. Not necessarily because the sound itself contains mystical power, but because it interrupts internal chaos. For a moment, the nervous system slows down. The mind becomes quieter. And in that quietness, people often reconnect with parts of themselves buried under stress for years. Creativity returns. Focus returns. Hope returns. That emotional shift alone can change behavior significantly over time. And behavior shapes outcomes. This doesn't mean everyone must use 432 Hertz specifically. The deeper lesson is broader. Your internal environment matters. What you consume matters. What you listen to matters. What emotional state you reinforce daily matters. Because eventually, your repeated state becomes your repeated behavior. And repeated behavior becomes your life. Most people try to change results without changing state. But state always leaks into behavior eventually. A stressed mind creates stressed decisions. A fearful mind creates fearful actions. A distracted mind creates inconsistent habits. Meanwhile, a regulated nervous system creates more space for intentional living. And intentional living changes everything over time. That's why conversations about frequencies continue growing. Not because everyone believes in mystical claims, but because people intuitively feel that modern life has disconnected them from internal balance. And deep down, they know something about the way they currently live feels unsustainable. Too much noise, too much pressure, too much mental fragmentation. So when they discover something that creates even a small moment of calm, it feels powerful, because calmness has become rare, and rare things become valuable, especially in a world designed to constantly overstimulate attention. So if you've been feeling financially stuck, emotionally exhausted, unable to maintain momentum, the answer may not be another productivity hack. It may begin with something simpler, learning how to regulate your internal state again. Because financial growth is not only built through external action, it's also built through the quality of the mind, creating those actions every single day. And sometimes, the smallest shifts in internal balance create the biggest long-term changes in direction. If this video made you think differently about the connection between mental state, emotional regulation, and financial growth, subscribe to the channel. Because in the next videos, we're going deeper into the hidden psychological and energetic patterns that silently affect focus, consistency, motivation, stress, and financial behavior. And if you want to explore the deeper relationship between sound frequencies, nervous system balance, and the internal patterns connected to abundance and emotional clarity, check the link in the description and the pinned comment. It explains why so many people remain trapped in cycles of stress and financial frustration, how internal imbalance affects long-term behavior, and why restoring mental clarity may be more important than most people realize. If you're ready to understand what may really be interfering with your momentum, start there.